Welcome. You just watched a couple of videos that talk about the difference between literary nonfiction and informational nonfiction, and we also looked at a video about memoir or personal narrative, and we're going to read a piece together called Kennedy in the Barrio, and we're going to study it and see how it fits into this literary nonfiction genre. Kennedy in the Barrio by Judith Ortiz Cofer. My sixth grade class had been assigned to watch the Kennedy inauguration on television, and I did at the counter of Puerto Habana, the restaurant where my father worked. I heard the Cuban owner, Larry Reyes, say that an Irish Catholic being elected meant that someday an Hispanic could be elected president of the United States too. I saw my father nod in automatic agreement with his boss, but his eyes were not on the grainy screen. He was mainly concerned with the food cooking in the back and with the listless waitress mopping the floor. Larry Reyes turned his attention to me then and raised his cup as if to make a toast. "Here's to a Puerto Riqueño or Puerto Riqueña President of the United States," he laughed. Not kindly, I thought. "Right, Elenita?" I shrugged my shoulders. Later, my father would once again reprimand me for not showing Mr. Reyes the proper respect. 2 years and 10 months later, I would run to Puerto Habana on a cold Friday afternoon to find a crowd of people around the television set. Many of them, men and women both, were sobbing like children. "Dios mío," they kept wailing. A group of huddling women tried to embrace me as I made my way to my parents, who were holding each other tightly, apart from the others. I slipped in between them. I smelled her scent of Castile soap, café con leche, and cinnamon. I inhaled his mixture of sweat and Old Spice cologne, a man smell that I was afraid to like too much. That night at Puerto Habana, Larry Reyes and my father served free food. Both of them wore black armbands. My mother cooked and I bussed tables. An old woman started reciting the rosary aloud, and soon practically everyone was kneeling on that hard linoleum floor, praying and sobbing for our dead president. Exhausted from the outpouring of public grief and exasperated by the displays of uncontrolled emotion I had witnessed that day, the ay benditos, the kisses and embraces of strangers I had had to endure, I asked if I could go home early. For the first time in my life, my vigilant mother trusted me to walk alone at night without the usual lecture about the danger of the streets. The dark, empty silence of our apartment gave me no solace, and in a turmoil of emotions I had never experienced before, I went to sleep the night of the day President Kennedy died. I rose the next day to a world that looked the same. Okay, so let's take a minute and we will compare this reading to the two videos we looked at before about literary nonfiction and personal narrative. So the literary nonfiction elements that this story contains are imagery. The author talks about what she smells and sees and hears. For example, when she's talking about her mother, she says, "I smelled her scent of Castile soap, café con leche, and cinnamon." So we get that quote that has that sensory language in that, and you wouldn't see that in a strictly informational piece necessarily. And another literary nonfiction element present in this nonfiction piece is figurative language. She uses a simile. Many of them, men and women both, were crying like children. So that's an example of a literary nonfiction element that's present in this piece. It also has some elements of personal narrative. We get the I point of view, that first person point of view, and that helps us see into the narrator's thoughts and feelings. Where in just an informational piece, it's usually objective third person point of view. The narrative structure, it reads just like a fictional short story, but the only difference is it's a true story. So that's how this piece aligns with the elements of literary nonfiction.